let's talk about this. There's a report out of Dallas, shifting back over to the Dallas Cowboys, that they're prioritizing CeeDee Lamb's extension over Dak Prescott. Now, this is what it tells me. When I see the Dallas Cowboys are prioritizing an extension for wide receiver CeeDee Lamb over Dak Prescott, it tells me they're not as serious about Dak Prescott as they used to be. Now, let me finish here because it's not a indictment on Dak Prescott. I just think the Dallas Cowboys are saying, well, if a wide receiver is more important to our team than our quarterback, it feels like our chances of winning a Super Bowl are over before they begin. Dak Prescott has been a fine and at times a very good quarterback in the NFL. Now, granted, is there a chance you can win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott? I'm not so sure. Is there a chance that you can win multiple playoff games in the same year with Dak Prescott? That has been my biggest concern with Dak. But here's what I will say. And you mentioned this to me, Chris. What's the alternative? What's the alternative to Dak Prescott? You're not going to be worse than what you were last year. So that means you're going to trade up and pray that a quarterback saves you. I think the Dallas Cowboys are doing this all wrong. When you prioritize an extension with a wide receiver over a quarterback, in which the wide receiver is directly affected by who's his quarterback is, I think it's a bad look for the Dallas Cowboys. If it is indeed true that they're prioritizing extension with CeeDee Lamb over Dak Prescott, because it tells me they're prepared to lose Dak Prescott. And although I've been highly critical of Dak Prescott, you're the Dallas Cowboys. You cannot be irrelevant. You're not the Arizona Cardinals. You're not the Atlanta Falcons, where if you suck, no one notices. What does it tell you that the Dallas Cowboys are indeed prioritizing an extension with CeeDee Lamb over Dak Prescott? Does it tell you the same thing it tells me, that they're just not that serious about Dak?
So one thing I will say is there's been some mixed reporting when it comes to this, because I did hear that report, but I also heard a report from Jeremy Fowler that said they're all in on signing Dak. He's the priority right now. So there's a lot of mixed messaging coming out of, this whole situation. To me, I do think they get Dak done. I think they end up signing all three of these guys, Dak, CeeDee, and Micah, just because when you look at the Cowboys salary cap in future years, I don't think enough people have done enough research on it, which is perfectly fine. Not everybody covers the team as intently as I do. They're completely fine when it comes to salary cap space over the next few years. They're going to have $65 million in 2025. But here's the thing. Dak Prescott already accounts $40 million against the cap in 2025 with a dead money cap hit. If they re-sign him, they don't have to worry about that. That'll just become a cap hit for Dak Prescott, and they'll push that out into future years. They already have $21 million on the cap for Micah Parsons' fifth-year extension. The only guy that they don't have under the cap for next season or money accounted for would be CeeDee Lamb. So, and then when you look out into the future, I believe their 2026 salary cap is $160 million, and their 2027 salary cap, I believe it would be, is $256 million. So they have plenty of cap space to get this done and get all three of these guys under contract. And I want people to understand this, because I even heard this on Scoop City with, Diana Rossini and Chase Daniels. Chase Daniels was talking about, Dak's going to count 60, Mike is going to count 35, and CeeDee is going to count 35. But they're not. Like that would mean that all three of those guys signed a fully guaranteed contract, and that 100% of their money is going against the cap. It's not. In reality, you're probably looking at around 43-ish million for Dak on the cap next season. You're looking at around, a little over 20 for CeeDee and a little over 20 for Micah Parsons in future years. And then obviously you'll restructure it. You'll push money off in the future. And, obviously we know the salary cap always goes up. So that's the reason why you want to do something like that. So when it comes to fitting these three guys on the cap, they'll be able to do it. But when it comes to CeeDee being a priority over Dak, the only reason why I would say that could potentially be the case is because CeeDee Lamb is a much easier deal to get done. There's a more defined framework around that contract than there is for Dak Prescott because of how unprecedented this situation has been with the amount of leverage Dak Prescott has. So it wouldn't surprise me if CeeDee gets a deal first, just because he is also holding out a training camp. So, I do think eventually they get all three of these guys done. I think Micah will be next year. I think CeeDee will be this year. And I think Dak, they'll get them done this year. And they'll have all three of those guys for the future.
So here's what I will say. When people say that they're going to spend a ton of money on Micah, CeeDee Lamb, and Dak Prescott, that is what you want to do. You want to hit home runs in the draft to where you're paying your star players. And also, you're absolutely right. Just because they're making, let's just say Dak gets $60 million a year. Just because it says $60 million a year, which I understand is crazy money, he's not going to get that. He's probably going to be closer to 48. Let's say he gets 60 million. That doesn't mean it counts all against the cap. There's signing bonuses. There's a way you can convert it. And a Dallas Cowboys team with Jerry Jones, who knows how much longer he's going to be around, that's the harsh reality, wants to win a Super Bowl again, they'll have money to spend. Let me ask you this last question, because I'm curious to know what you think. I absolutely do believe this is Dak Prescott's last year with the Dallas Cowboys. I think that they see this is as far as they can go. They're frustrated by it. Without a clear succession plan, I think it's the wrong decision. As we close here, this will be my last question towards you. Do you think do you think Dak Prescott is a Dallas Cowboy for the foreseeable future? A contract gets done and he's a Cowboy for quote unquote life. Let's call it the next 4 to 5 years.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think they're going to get a contract done. This is what the Cowboys do. But, my question to people would be this. When have the Cowboys wanted to sign a player and not, like when it comes to their own players, and not gotten the deal done? I think they'll get this done. Let me give you something as well. I'm going to put this out here. If Dak Prescott is not the quarterback in 2025 for the Dallas Cowboys, Russell Wilson will be their quarterback that year. Hear me out. Dak is going to count for dead money on the cap. Russell Wilson is not a guy who's going to make a bunch of money over the next few years of his career. He's also a guy who has veteran experience. He's won a Super Bowl. I think that that's the route they're going to go. And if that's the case, it really makes no sense, because you're paying, again, $40 million to Dak Prescott and whatever money you're going to pay towards Russell Wilson for a far inferior quarterback at this point of his career.